Hi, everyone. So I've just got back from WARHAMMER FEST. I got back yesterday, so I'm recording this on Tuesday. My voice is gone. I'm exhausted, but I'm going to do a little video just to go through what WARHAMMER FEST was like, what it was, what the sort of layout was, what we did with our weekend, what I think was good, and what I think could be improved. There were a few things, but generally I thought it was pretty good. So yeah, let's just go through the day. I'm actually exhausted. I've spent 3 days. It's a bank holiday weekend in the UK. So I spent 3 days at WARHAMMER FEST in Manchester. If you don't know, WARHAMMER FEST is like, how would you describe it? It's like, I guess, a convention is the best way of describing it. There are tournaments happening, but they aren't really the focus. Golden Demon is there. Again, it's not necessarily the majority of things happening. Mostly it's just like a big excuse to go and do Warhammer-y things and see things you wouldn't do for a few days. It's happened before. The last one I think was before lockdown. And myself and Gary from my Tale of Four Gamers channel went to that one. That was at the Coventry Arena. But this is a new venue. This is in Manchester Central, which is this, it's much bigger. It's a huge exhibition centre in the centre of Manchester. It's very much built for this sort of big con. They also hold like concerts and things there. It's the old Victorian rail station, a big, huge, beautiful single arch rail station that's been sort of flattened out and turned into this exhibition centre. One of the things this is kind of a successor to what they used to call Games Day, which they used to hold in an arena in Birmingham years back. And it was just like an excuse to come and see participation games and meet designers and things like that. I guess the best way to describe it is like a day out. And if there's anything that I think maybe wasn't clear in some of the publicity, is that this is meant to be a day out. What we'll do is I'll go through this. I'll talk about the venue and the layout and what there was there. And then I'll go through like what we did, because we booked tickets way before. I was invited as a creator. So thanks, Warhammer. I was invited as a creator. But I was invited like a month ago as a creator. I booked tickets as soon as they came out. So we actually went to play games and do a few different things. So we'll go through that. And then I'll have a look at like, there were some complaints. There are always about this sort of thing. And I'll go through which ones I think are good or bad or valid or where it could be improved. But yeah, I really enjoyed myself. One of the things also I want to say is it's important to remember the numbers we're talking about, right? So WARHAMMER FEST is in this big convention center. I think from what I heard, Saturday had over 10,000 people. Sunday and Monday had slightly less. There were a lot of tournament tables playing, but I would guess that the number of tournament attendees never went over about 800 a day, if that. So, and I think 1,500 people over the weekend submitted to Golden Demon. So just to get you a sense of numbers, neither Golden Demon entrants nor tournaments both of them are dwarfed by the number of people who just came for fun. So that's kind of where we're at with this. Right, venue, Manchester Central. This place is amazing. I've worked there before in my normal job. It's a major step up from where they've often done these things. They did little events last year where they were sort of getting back to things after COVID at Warhammer World. Warhammer World is lovely. Warhammer World is a fraction of the size by comparison. Manchester Central is a proper arena. Like it's where you would do a Comic-Con or something like that. It's a great venue. It's extremely well equipped. And I've got to say that even in boring event venue stuff, everything went really well. You know, there weren't any problems with the toilets. The food was actually quite good and there were lots of options and the queues were never that long. Entry and exit was fine. You know, all that management stuff that you want from a good venue was good. However, it was obviously the first year they'd done it. As you enter, you go up the stairs, you do all the various queues. We'll get to that in a bit. There was some queuing issues, but we go past the various queues. You get your bag checked, which obviously in various queues takes a while because there's boxes of models for tournaments. And you hit this big 40K display, which was really nice. There's a big exciting entrance. And then you go through that and you come into the main arena, which is this big old Victorian train station. There's a big black drape hanging here in the middle, which annoyingly hides the full span of it. It kind of separates one area from another. But yeah, you get the impression. That big hanging drape sort of splits the space, sort of mentally splits the space in two. Before the drape, there is the Golden Demon cabinets as you come in on the left. And on the right, there's like a big hobby challenge area. I did this for them last year. I was invited to the, was it Fest? Was it a Golden Demon? It was Golden Demon last year. And hobby challenge is where you get a load of sprues and your ticket buys you one of the event exclusive models. And then you have to build, convert, and paint it in one day. And then there's a judging and a prize at the end. Really, really, really fun. They provide all the tools and paints and sprues and whatever you want. And then there's like a shop with current kits and also quite a lot of out of print kits. I think some people had complaints about the shop. I think the focus of the shop was very much on the sort of thing you don't buy in a Warhammer store. So it had stuff that you can't get anymore, dice that are out of print anymore, lots of things like the Joy Toy, massive action figures, loads of Forge World, though it wasn't sorted particularly, obviously. But so when people were saying, oh, the shop didn't have anything, it's like the shop was focused on being a weird event shop, not your local Games Workshop store. And then mostly the rest of it was affiliates. So you have like stands for Warp Forge, which is the guys who used to do the Heresy card game, with demo tables all set up. You had stands for Crucible 7, who make all the role-playing games. They were demoing Imperium Maledictum. There was a bolt gun stand, so you could try out the new bolt game early. I think there was Space Marine 2 was there. So all the video games had separate stands. The Titan Owners Club had been invited down, so that's Adeptus Titanicus, but played at full 40k scale. So you could join in and do, roll some dice and fire a Titan and things like that. They play it on the floor on a huge mat, and they have these giant templates. We had fun with that. That was really good. And then they'd set up a little board game cafe, like seats. You could just sit down, grab a table, borrow a set of Underworlds, or they were playing those like Space Marine Adventures games, the mini games that you can learn quite quick, and play those. And then finally, there was a demo area. A hugely busy demo area because the main thing in it was 10th edition demos, 10th edition 40k, and then a few other tables. That was one of the contentious points because there wasn't much of it. We'll get to that in a minute. And then there was a load of other things happening around the area. Like there was a scavenger hunt where you could win pins if you found all the tokens going on. I think someone said there were 25 things to do. Once you got past that initial area, the rest of the hall was tournament tables. They were running loads of tournaments. So I think there was a 40k grand tournament, an Age of Sigmar grand tournament, and then loads of small one-day events. So there was a Heresy Singles Day and a Heresy Doubles Day and a Mega Battle Apocalypse Day. There was a one-day Kill Team event and there was a Warcry event. There was a 40k casual tournament. There was a Underworld's Grand Clash. So yeah, loads and loads of different things happening over the 3 days. And then out of that, we had like a cosplay area where the cosplayers were all sort of demoing what they'd done. And at the end of that, one of the sort of interesting things about the event, there was a thing called Kill Team Live, which was Imperial Guard versus Orcs laser tag that you could sign up to play in. I had a go at that. Interesting thoughts about that. Then there was a big food court, and then finally there was the auditorium, which is like theatre-style seating where you can watch the previews. The auditorium had I think it had 600 or 700 capacity. So there was an auditorium where you could watch all these previews where Eddie and Adam were doing their official, release previews and announcements and things like that. So that's what it was, like a lot of stuff going on. Though some of those things required either queuing or being ticketed. You had to buy a ticket. Like if you wanted to be in the hobby challenge or a tournament, obviously you needed to organize that ahead of time. I think Kill Team Live was also ticketed. And then things like previews and demos had queues, and yeah, those queues could get quite long. Our journey started about 6 months before. So obviously when it was released, we bought tickets because we thought me and, Tale of Four Gamers, Gary and friends from the Hate Club in London all wanted to go and wanted to play games and go to Fest and have a little weekend away. So, we booked our ticket, booked our hotel, and then booked ourselves into 2 tournaments. Way later, like a month ago, I then got asked to come as a creator, which is lovely. And I did say, look, I will happily come and do things and, be at the event and see some of the previews. But obviously I'm not going to be creating much until afterwards because I've actually booked myself up for things. So what we did, we arrived on Saturday morning, queued up. There was a bit of queue confusion, which I guess is kind of standard for a new venue event. But I think what had happened is like someone had said it was 10 a.m. entry, but then they changed it to 8 a.m. entry, but tournaments were going in earlier. And of course, I had like a normal entry pass, a tournament pass, and a creator pass. So I was completely confused. But it didn't, to be honest, it didn't take long to sort out. Once the doors were open, we were in pretty quickly. I was got my fancy creator pass and was whisked away to see the preview, and then immediately left that. Didn't watch the preview because all the tournaments started at 9. So I immediately went into an Underworlds tournament. So we played the Underworlds Grand Clash on the Saturday. I brought Mibilor Darkfang. I was running them as Spike Claw's Swarm, so I did bring the correct models on sprue in case anyone was being a dick, but no one was. So we all played. It was lots of fun. It was 4 rounds, best of 3, which means you could be playing between 8 and 12 games, which is a lot. I did really well. They maybe won 3 of the rounds. I think I only lost a couple of games. And then the last round, I came up against Volomir, who obviously knows what he's doing. I'd sort of chaosed my way through the whole event until that point. And then I came up with Volomir against Volomir's Storms of Celestus, which I think might have been on the top table, and however that worked. And he completely took me apart. I think I played 2 games against him, lost them both. The first one I lost 21, and the second one like 12-8, so a bit better. So that was really fun. There was prizes. I won a deck box and some special tokens. A lot of people, they divided the prizes up quite nicely, so everyone sort of got something. We went out for food with some other creators, which was really nice. And then Sunday turned back up again. So on Sunday, we'd signed up for Heresy doubles. So Gary and I were playing Heresy doubles with our Tales of 4 Gamers armies. So I played White Scars. Gary played Space Wolves. It was very well paced. We played 2 games of Heresy. It was obviously very casual. It's doubles. Doubles games take ages because you're constantly checking with the next person what you're going to do. We played 2 games. We never got to the end of either game, but we had lots of fun. Both our opponents were really nice. We lost the first game by 1 point and won the second game by 1 point. I don't know what the results were, whether Loyalists or Traitors won. The next day was a big apocalypse battle, and it was part of a whole weekend-long sort of casual narrative campaign. That was fun. That ended a bit earlier, probably about 6:30. It was, again, both of those are pretty well organized. I have some thoughts, like one of the issues like at the start they were using Best Coast pairings for the Underworlds event, which is obviously efficient, but what it meant was there was kind of no preamble. There was like a general, at the start of all the tournaments, there was like an announcement, sort of welcome to the event sort of thing, but it was very much aimed at the grand tournament people. And then we just got a bloop on our phone going, go to table, whatever. So it took us maybe a game or 2 until we realized who the people who were running our event were. So it would have been nice to just it felt a bit automated. It would have been nice to just get that little preview going at the start, but they all went really well. The Heresy event was great. It was very casual. We were a bit worried because the event pack had missed out a load of stuff. We weren't sure if we were allowed to bring allies. We weren't sure if we were allowed to bring expanded units. It turned out actually it was also casual. No one minded. So I just brought all those things. Yeah, fine. And then on Sunday night, I went to the creator meetup. So this was a really nice little thing. I was glad that it was on a different night to other things I booked. The events team invited all the content creators and industry people. There was people there reviewing for gaming magazines and gaming websites. They invited us all into a little preview, essentially, of not only the stuff that was coming out the next day. So I think we got a preview of the Kill Team set, which was this thing released on the Monday. Or previewed on the Monday. So we got a preview of that, and we got a preview of a couple of other things. And it wasn't huge. Like, we got a little preview and a bit more information about what the plans are for releases and content creators in the next few weeks. But nothing massive. Like, it wasn't like, I now know everything that's being released. I know I have secrets, but like 2, but that's it. And it was kind of a nice, it felt like a nice little thank you, which is always good. So it was just really nice to have the team be like, we're all together in the room. Here are some fun things we're going to give you. And thanks, generally. Thanks for, sort of being the face of this on social media. So that was nice. We then got, which was actually the nice thing, we got then to go around the hall. They kept the hall open. We got to go around the hall without the crowds there. So we could, film the Golden Demon cabinets without all the people there, which was an issue generally, or try out stuff. I looked at all the Golden Demon cabinets finally, which is something I hadn't had time to do. I've been playing games I hadn't done any of this stuff. I've been playing games for 2 days straight at that point. And then I played the Kill Team Live. So yeah, probably the time to talk about Kill Team Live. So Kill Team Live was a really interesting thing. I believe they're going to take it to other places. I imagine any events will have this running in there. What it was laser tag, which sounded really exciting. So it was laser tag. They built these las guns and orc shooters and divided you up to teams, and you could go and sign up and play like an 8-minute game of laser tag. And in many ways, it was really, really well done. It was, at the time I played it, at like 9:30, 10 o'clock on a Sunday night after 2 days of gaming. It wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was Quasar when I was 12. Like, if you don't know what that is, if that reference doesn't land, Quasar was a laser tag game we all played in the 90s. You went to a center, it was dimly lit and flashy lights, and essentially the game was you needed to score points by hitting people, and when you got hit, your pack like buzzed for a second and you couldn't fire for a few seconds, and then you were back into it. There were no more rules than that. It was shoot the person. This wasn't that. In this, evidently someone who knows about laser tag had figured out a whole mission. Apparently it was a version of one of the basic Kill Team missions. So I think we spent more time in a briefing than we did playing the game. The mission had objectives that you needed to get to defend. If you were hit, then you'd be dead and you'd have to go to the respawn point to respawn yourself to be able to come back. There was a lot of like talk about group tactics and things, which is all lovely, but just not what I want from Laser Quest. That when you're running around, you want to run around, you don't want to think about that much when you're at an event like this. So it was really well done. In many ways, you know, the guns were really complex. You had fire modes. The props were really good. The mission was well designed. The objectives were, you know, it was really well thought out and just like way more than I wanted. So from the minute I got into the briefing, I regretted choosing to do it. I just wandered around, shot some people, got shot, and hoped it would finish. Again, not that it's bad. If you're really into laser tag, maybe this was more for you. I get the impression if you could play it a few times, you could actually play the game, you know? But for me, I mostly had no idea what was going on. Yeah, obviously, it's also in a back conference room with a carpeted floor and some like fencing with some drapes over it. And some Games Workshop employees in blue shirts going, for the Emperor, after obviously they've been doing this for 2 days. So yeah, for me, turned out not to be what I wanted. If you really like that sort of thing, then maybe it was. I'm sure everyone else looked like they were having a great time. But yeah, I thought it was a bit overthought. I'm sure this will happen at lots of other events. So have a go. If you're into that, maybe you will think differently. Anyway, that was my Creator Sunday. And then we went to an arcade game bar, which I was already exhausted and losing my voice by that point. And then Monday, we actually had a day to do Warhammer Fest. We just came and wandered around, went to the shop, Monday was the quietest day. So it was still a national holiday here, so people were off, but it was probably half the people that it was on Saturday, so the queues were a bit less. We had a long lie, had a nice breakfast, went in a bit late, and then did the event. I spoke to loads of people. This is actually one of the things that was nicest about the whole event and why I lost my voice, apart from, you know, yelling over game tables, was just I met tons of people. If you came up and said hello, so many people came up and said hello and said thanks. I think I had to sort of develop things to say. I've been always quite bad at meeting people who know me from the channel, meeting them in real life and not knowing what to say. Now I know. Now I'm good at that now. Meeting other creators, most of whom I know, but we just don't get to meet up very often. And we all do this. Some of them do it for a living and we just don't get to meet up. So loads of people that I haven't seen for a while that it was just really nice to see and catch up with again. And then loads of people would just come up to me and go, oh, you're up, Irene. I love your stuff. I really enjoy it. So yeah, just lots and lots of shaking hands and chatting to people. We've been doing this all weekend, but then Monday was kind of the day for that, right? So we just walked around. I got to try on some of the bits of cosplay from the cosplay gang who were all brilliant. I got to speak to the people at Crucible 7 that I really wanted to for a while about Imperium Maledictum, which is the new Dark Heresy-like 40k role-playing game. We actually that's when we played the Titan game. And yeah, we just sort of blobbed around for the day, doing bits and bobs, saying hello to people. Yeah, it was nice. So that was probably the best day to do that. I'm really glad we didn't book a third thing. I feel like if I was doing it turned out that what we'd done was the right way to do a 3-day event. Other people had different thoughts. So look, I liked it. I think the way this works is, again, as I said at the start, you've got to remember the numbers here. There are 10,000 people on the Saturday. There's probably 20-something thousand overall over the weekend, of which only 1,500 entered Golden Demons, and maybe about, I'm going to guess about 1,500, maybe 2,000 over the whole weekend played in a tournament. So the vast majority of people are just coming to be there for a day out. And if you think of it as a one-day event, as like a day out, you bought your ticket, you're going for a day out to Warhammer Fest, it works. There was, as someone mentioned, there was like 25 things to do. There was loads of stuff to look at and see. I think certainly on my Monday, I was fine with that. Like that was enough stuff for me to do. I really enjoyed it. But there is a problem with that. And some of the other content creators and some other people there, I think, had this issue where what they'd done is turned up on Saturday to submit, Saturday morning, straight away, turn up, submit to Golden Demon. Results were on Monday afternoon, and they hadn't booked anything else. So then they got quite bored. They didn't have enough things to do for the whole 3 days. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is that all the things that would eat up one of your days were ticketed events, which is fine. I get that. I think this is the fault of like, maybe this is only communication, but yeah, if you're going to this for 3 days, book some things to do. Don't assume that you can walk around the whole thing for 3 days and be constantly entertained by new things for 3 days. I think that's pretty standard for a con. Like I've been to Comic Cons where, yeah, half a day in, maybe by 2 p.m. at London Comic Con, I've seen all the stands I want. If I'm not going to a panel, that's me done. I don't need to be there for 3 days. And if I was going to a panel, there would be a massive queue for it. And that'll be half my day too. And that happened. So the actual problem was essentially with underestimating the numbers of people who want to do sort of the main 3 things. If you were just there for a day out, like the 3 biggest attractions are the Golden Demon cabinets, the 10th edition demo, and the previews, like going to see the previews live. And those are the 3 things that had the biggest queues and the least capacity, kind of. Obviously, Golden Demon is the sort of one you can't really solve by that. Golden Demon is a load of cabinets in a row. It's obviously full of people. There was no queue. You could just walk up to the cabinets and see what you wanted. But the problem was people were kind of wanting to see everything. So they were trying to start on one end and work their way around. And of course, when they get to a new cabinet, they want to stand at that new cabinet for minutes, taking a photo of every model and looking at everything. And that means no one else can see because there's people standing in front of the cabinets. So for a lot of the time, Golden Demon was really hard to get close enough to see the models. You'd be sort of waiting for a gap, then go in, and then you'd be the problem. Unfortunately, that's kind of what Golden Demon's always like. There's no real way of solving that. There were cabinets of models near 10th edition, which were all the new 10th edition models. New Leviathan box set models, which you could access 360, so that wasn't a problem. But you can't do that in Golden Demon because part of the painting process means the judges have to constantly be able to get to the back of the cabinets. You know, their tickets get marked, they have pins awarded and things like that. So you can't just space them out and give people more space and make it 360. People can't walk around the whole cabinet because, the back of the cabinets is like a private area where those models are taken away for judging. So it's always a problem. Essentially, it's way too many people to be able to view the cabinets. The only way to solve that is to do a much smaller event, which I don't think anyone would want. Then people would complain that not enough people could enter. So I don't know how you solve that. That's what Golden Demon's always like. The problem is, if you tried to keep people moving, people would complain they didn't get enough time to see everything. The problem is essentially everyone complains that everyone's standing looking at the models for too long, and then they all get to the cabinets and stand and look at the models for too long. That's the issue. So Golden Demon, blah. The 10th edition demo, this was probably genuinely the biggest actual miscalculation of the event. There were 4 10th edition demo tables. The team running them did really well. They were doing, I think, 4 huge, actually probably too big demos of the game. 45 minutes, I think, was the standard demo length at the start, and they were cutting it down over the weekend to make it shorter and shorter and shorter because the queues were for hours. People were queuing for 2 hours to play a game of 10th edition. There just weren't enough tables. I think I remember being at the launch of 8th edition, which was another fest-like event, and I think that had like 20 tables, but maybe I'm misremembering. But it had a lot more. That was, I think, an obvious thing. Like, there should have been 10 tables of demos. The demos should have been much smaller and taken much faster, quicker time. That should have been obvious. The other thing was that there weren't any other demos. Like there was one demo table doing actual staffed demos of Underworlds and another one doing Kill Team, and that was it. I think that was a problem. I think there should have been way more of that. I would have blended the demo area with the board gaming area and just had a lot of staff on hand to like teach people how to play things and run people through games. Like it's a games company. That's what should have been a major quarter of the hall should have been that. So that was the second thing. And just 10th edition demos, no one could do them. There were no other demos really. There was like 2 little tables. And finally, the previews had the same problem. So the previews were all in this auditorium separately, which was lovely, but it could seat 600 or 700 people, and they are one of the main attractions at an event for 10,000 a day. So there were huge queues. Like every preview had a massive queue. People were queuing for an hour to get in, and they couldn't all get in, I think. And so that caused a lot of annoyance. People were saying, well, you know, if the main things you want to do there are see Golden Demon, demo 10th edition, and see a preview live, you're going to be queuing for half the day. Now, I just didn't do any of those things, so I don't care. But, you know, I had a great day because I spoke to the RPG people and played some video games and did some Titan owners, played the giant game of Titans. Brilliant. We had loads of fun. But if specifically you want to do those specific 3 things, you can't do them. And I think they're probably the most popular things. That was genuinely an issue. Again, those are kind of issues of all conventions. As I said, like if you go to London Comic Con and you want to get into the Critical Role panel, you better be queuing an hour before, and good luck. So this is like endemic to conventions, but yeah, there were definitely some underestimations there. Otherwise, yeah, I really had fun. I think there were probably, obviously this is the first time they were doing it in a new event venue. Running events is something that is colossally complicated. There are huge amounts of considerations about how much space each of these things can take up to do with fire regulations and access and things like that. But bearing that in mind a little bit, and without pretending that I know everything, there are probably some things I would recommend differently. I guess one of the obvious things to me was that the tournaments took up an awful lot of space. My initial first thought would be that you decrease the number of tournaments happening. They're not the main draw. I think one of the really interesting things in this is there were one-day events for all the games you don't often see events for. So what I'd actually do is sack off the 40k and Age of Sigmar Grand tournaments. You can do those at Warhammer World. That you don't need this sort of space to do it. I know it's like a prestige event, but no one's there to see that. You know, that it's not the draw. And actually concentrate on all those little one-day events that are like fun participation gamey events. Put those in, make that tournament area smaller, and then put it in the side room. Put it in a different space. A half of the main room of this colossal building was taken up with tournament tables. Most people there had a quick walk around them, I guess. They didn't care. Again, 10,000 people, you had 800 playing a tournament. Yeah, it's not a priority. My suggestion would be to move those tournaments into a different space. And in the rest of the main space, actually move the previews in there. Like put a stage at the end of the room, put a PA there, big screen above them, right at the end of the main hallway, lose that big black drape, and have like a seated area, a standing area with all the demo games and get tables, and maybe even the main food bit there in the middle, and then all the same things at the other end. And that way, all the fest stuff is in the same room. Like when people are feeling a bit bored because they can't get into anything, you know, the previews are all just happening there in front of you while you wander around. What actually we had was 700 people watching a preview in an auditorium and everyone else crowding around a small telly in the main space because, you know, you probably would have by that point had a better experience watching it on the internet. I would think that seems like a no-brainer to me. The thing that everyone's there to see, put that in the main room. Tournaments, brilliant, put them all in side rooms. That would be what I would do. And if that means losing some tournaments, lose the ones that don't need to be there, the ones that everyone will go to anyway. Take the grand tournament, put it in Warhammer World the week after. Do that. Also, I'd love to see the return of some of the bigger participation games. That's something that Games Day used to do that they just sort of didn't do in this. Having one of those gaming areas just be a giant game of one big scenario that you could join in on. You know, a bit like the Titan Owners Club did. Like, that would be lovely. Like having a great big Titan Walk or a great big Tyranid Ultramarine fight for 10th edition on a massive piece of, you know, one of the boards they can bring from the exhibition or something really huge that everyone can join in on. That would have felt like quite a good thing to have. I missed that. One of the things that many people commented on is the lack of any panels or pods. I think there were some painting competitions. I don't know where, but painting tutorials. I don't know where they went. They had to sign up for those. Some of the things that these things have had before in the past have been like Black Library stands, authors to chat to. You know, we've done versions of this where designers have sat in front of cabinets of the models they're designing, and painters have been there. I've seen versions of this where, you know, the design studio illustrators have their big, you know, graphics tablets out drawing illustrations for the next box art. That sort of thing would have been lovely to see. I know that it's quite a difficult thing for Games Workshop to organize because it's a big ask on lots of other departments, all of whom don't do events. So I think politically in any company of this size, it becomes quite difficult to organize that because, you know, this is an event made by the events and the marketing team, and it's not necessarily part of the Forge World design team's considerations or practices. So yeah, but it is something I'd like to see. Other things, like I mentioned about the tournament just feeling a bit automated at the start. There was some questions over rules packs, questions over timings, questions over when we were going to arrive. All of it seems like, I mean, I've had the same at every large event I've ever been to. So, you know, fine, I get it. I think there probably could have been more little spot prizes for participating. I think the people playing the big grand tournaments got a goodie bag with a £10 voucher for the store that was included and some objective tokens. Shadespire had a lot of tokeny prizes at the end. Heresy had nothing. I would have liked, you know, it's Games Workshop. We went to the SumpCon Necromunda thing, which is like no money involved. And everyone who participated got a little tin of dice and a couple of resin models from third-party suppliers that had agreed to send some stuff. Games Workshop could do that, right? You could sign up for the Heresy and get a cool dice and a pin and they've got these things by the bucket load. You know, just goodie bags. So I would have liked to have seen something like that. So yeah, that was our experience of Warhammer Fest. What's my recommendations? If they do this again, if you're thinking of going for the day, I would still maybe look into what's bookable. Hopefully those queues will go down. Treat it like a day out. If you're looking to go for a weekend, book things. You need to book things. There are not 3 days of computer games to play and 10th edition demos to do. Book actual events that last a day. That's my main thing. And yeah, have fun. But look, it was I mean, I'm picking at holes. Like, generally, as a large scale event, it went exceptionally smoothly. It was loads of fun. I saw so many people that I haven't seen for ages. I met so many people who were so nice about what I do on this channel. And it was just good to see all that stuff and meet people and play some stupid toy soldier games for the weekend and have a little weekend away. Yeah, my voice is suffering for it. I am still exhausted. My legs and feet and back hurt from walking around a conference center for 3 days. So I'm going to stop this here. But yeah, thanks to everyone who said hello. Thanks to Games Workshop for giving me the extra little bit of access. And thanks to anyone I played who, everyone was lovely. It was really nice. I didn't have a bad game all weekend. I will eagerly await the next one. Thanks for watching.